Hi, everyone. You're very welcome to this short presentation on advanced performance management APM. The whole idea of this presentation is to give you an overview of APM, what's involved, what is expected by the APM exam team. And you can make a decision then as to whether or not APM is the right option for you. Before we get started, I want to talk to you about pass rates and the success that we have achieved at Accountancyschool.ie in relation to APM. In the December 21 sitting, first in the world came from Accountancyschool.ie. In the subsequent sitting, March 2022, first in the world in APM also came from Accountancyschool.ie. In relation to how classes perform in general, let's go back to the June 2021 sitting, where 75% of the students that sat APM with the accountancy school passed the actual exam. So this is more than double the worldwide pass rate. So the results for APM are excellent. And we have a lot of world prize winners as well as national winners down through the years. My name is Michael Barry. I lecture APM for the accountancy school. I've been lecturing APM now for almost 30 years. All over the world. So I've been through a fair share of examiners and also changes to the syllabus for APM. Now, one thing that I need to point out from the outset that we would strongly recommend that you take SBL before taking the APM exam. You need to be able to learn how to walk before you can actually run. Students that jump straight from applied skills into the option papers don't perform as well as students that attempt the professional papers, SBL, SBR. Now, if you haven't done SBR, that's absolutely fine, but I would encourage you to actually take SBL before actually taking APM. The reason for that, of course, is SBL introduces you to case studies and professional skills. And it's all about strategic management. When you go into APM, what you're going to be doing is combining strategic management and management accounting. So what we will be doing is going back to what you've covered at applied skills level and performance management, and essentially combining that what you covered in strategic business leadership, SBL. So I look at APM as combining strategic management and management accounting. Now, for those of you that were exempted from performance management at applied skills level, or it might have been a long time since you've done performance management, no need to panic, because we'll go back over all those tools and techniques that you would have covered at applied skills level. And it's not just performance management at applied skills level, there's also financial management at applied skills level, because a little bit of financial management comes into play in APM as well. If you're looking for a number crunching paper, please stay away from APM. You'll find when you go through some of the more recent exam papers that most of the marks are going for narrative. And in fact, there has been recent APM exam papers where no calculations have been required at all. So please bear that in mind. So a rough breakdown would be 90% of the marks there for narrative and 10% of the marks then going for calculations. Now, what I want to do is I want to actually give you an overview of APM, and no better place to start than with the course notes that we're going to be using for 2022-2023. Now, these course notes were produced by myself, okay, and they have been updated to reflect the changes that have taken place. in relation to APM. We have a new syllabus for 2022-2023. Now, the syllabus is broken down really into 4 sections. So you have section A on strategic planning and control, section B, performance management information systems and technology, section C, strategic performance measurement, and section D, then performance evaluation. Let's pop back to section A. And we're going to be starting with strategic management accounting. We're going to talk about the management accountant, the role of the management accountant, and then we're going to take a look at the strategic management accountant. So effectively, you are a strategic management accountant when it comes to answering these requirements that are going to be in front of you in the APM exam. Chapter 2 is a short chapter on the performance hierarchy. We will be talking there about the 3 different levels of management: strategic, tactical, operational. We'll also be talking about critical success factors, key performance indicators, and many other little areas there. Performance management and control. This would be familiar to you from your previous studies. This is the whole area of budgeting. And what we're going to have to do is go back and revise over all those budgeting systems that you would have encountered in your previous studies, including the beyond budgeting model. Now, this is certainly one area where you might be expected to handle numbers. And it's quite possible that you might have to recalculate a budget. But once again, you're only talking about a small amount of marks there going for the numerical work. In relation to variances, variances are also tested in APM, but it's more the high-level variances. You're not going to be expected to calculate detailed variances like what you would have done at applied skills level. The variances that we are talking about here are more the type of variances that would be reported to high-level management in a company. But absolutely nothing to worry about there in relation to variances, because any variance work that is required in APM, it's not that difficult at all. You have changes in business structure and management accounting. Some of you might be familiar with business process re-engineering, a very important topic in APM. You're also going to encounter the value chain here. The value chain is something that you would have encountered, of course, in SBL. Another model that we'll be looking at here is McKinsey's 7S model as well. We need to turn our attention then to ESG, the environment, social, and governance factors. And chapter 6 then is on environmental management accounting. So we'll be talking about life cycle costing, activity-based costing, input, output analysis, flow cost accounting. These are all techniques that you would have encountered in your previous studies, but what we're going to do is we're going to bring these techniques into environmental management with a view to improving our environmental performance. So that's section A. Section B, then you're into information systems. We're going to be talking about many different types of information systems. What's more important than APM is what you can get out of these systems, the output from these systems. And the output should be information that management can use for planning, control, and making decisions. We'll be looking at the sources of management information, internal, external sources. We'll be talking about recording, processing, and technology. Data analytics, very important in APM. You might recall the V's when it comes to the characteristics of big data. But what we want to be able to try and do as well is look at the implications for big data for existing technologies as well. Now, data analytics, as I said, is important. And, you know, this is not the type of exam paper where you're going to regurgitate everything you know about data analytics. So what you might be looking at is a new system that the company is introducing. What you want to be able to get across then are the benefits, the problems with introducing the new system. You have management reports and integrated reporting. In relation to management reports, that actually comes into the case study question, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Integrated reporting also features in APM, but once again, it's not the type of topic where you regurgitate everything you know about integrated reporting. Questions are going to be a little bit more specific. For example, the role of the management accountant when it comes to integrated reporting. Now, section C is numerical, a lot of numerical stuff to cover in section C. So chapter 12, we're going to have to revisit financial management and go back over the NPV technique, the IRR, the modified internal rate of return. We're also going to have to go back over all those financial reporting indicators as well from F4. So we need to go back, take a look at profitability, liquidity, gearing. In relation to gearing, we need to look at capital gearing as well as operational gearing. Divisional performance you would have covered in your previous studies, but you're introduced to a very important measure here in chapter 13. Now, chapter 13 looks at the return on investment and residual income. Now, you might be a little bit rusty on those two measures. Don't worry, we'll go back to the very, very beginning on those two measures. But what is important here is economic value added, EVA. So they're introducing a third measure for divisional performance. So you have the ROI, residual income, and now on top of that, then this very important measure, economic value added. Now, this is another area where you can expect some number crunching. I mentioned already budgeting, there might be an opportunity to crunch some numbers. Likewise, in divisional performance, you may be required to calculate an ROI, residual income, an EVA figure. Transfer pricing, you would have covered in your previous studies. Transfer pricing is an area that a lot of students don't like. But, you know, in relation to transfer pricing, I think the reason why a lot of students don't like the area is that they don't understand the fundamentals of transfer pricing. And I think when the fundamentals are explained very clearly to you, I don't think you'd have any difficulty applying those fundamentals in a case study scenario-based question. You have not-for-profit making organizations. Now, there's two important areas here that we'll have to cover. Value for money, and you might recall the 3 E's from your previous studies, but also the use of league tables. And you'll see league tables now being used to rank schools, colleges, universities, etc. So it's quite possible for questions to be set on the public sector as well as the private sector. And in fact, I always say to students that, look, the public sector is likely to be there in section B of the exam paper. So if it's not in section A, there's likely to be something there in section B on the public sector. Non-financial performance indicators. That is such an important topic in APM. And we will cover financial performance indicators in chapter 12. Then what we'll do is we'll hit non-financial performance indicators in chapter 16. Japanese business practices, you might recall from your previous studies, just-in-time systems, total quality management, Kaizen costing. So these are all examples of Japanese techniques. And we better not forget target costing. You might remember target costing from performance management. So there are 4 Japanese business practices there: target costing, TQM, Kaizen costing, and what's the other one? Just-in-time systems. These are 4 techniques that are very, very important in APM. Six Sigma would be new to everyone coming into APM. I mentioned business process reengineering earlier on. With business process reengineering, what you're doing is you're re-engineering or redesigning a process. So you're creating a process from scratch. Six Sigma is quite similar, but what's happening in Six Sigma, rather than redesigning a process from scratch, what you're going to do is make improvements to an existing process. So rather than making radical changes to a process, what you're going to do is make incremental improvements to a process. So rather than redesigning the process, why not improve the existing process? And that's what Six Sigma is all about. You have HR management issues and reward systems and performance measurement. Now, chapter 19, chapter 20 are two very, very important chapters. Once again, in relation to HR management issues, we're not going to have to go back and revise over the HR function. There's one particular area that's important in HR for APM, and that is appraisal systems. So you learn all about appraisal systems in chapter 19, and of course, reward systems then in chapter 20. The final section of the syllabus is performance evaluation. And some of these areas you would be familiar with already. Chapter 21 is on the balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard is frequently tested in APM. A model that you would have not encountered in your previous studies is the performance permit. So this is a new model to you. It's a very simple model, but yet the questions on this particular model can be challenging at times. Now, another model that you would have come across in your previous studies is Fitzgerald and Moon's building blocks. So we're going to have to recap over that model as well. I know you've all covered activity-based costing in your previous studies, but on the APM syllabus, what we have is activity-based management. And you cannot implement an activity-based management system unless you have an activity-based costing system up and running. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and revise over activity-based costing before we actually hit activity-based management. Now, value-based management would be a new area to anybody coming into APM. There's a few new areas there that you would not have encountered in your previous studies. Now, much of what's covered in APM, you have encountered at some stage on your ACCA journey, but there are a few of those areas that you're encountering for the very, very first time when you do enter an APM classroom. So value-based management, an important topic as well. And we do have an article released by the ACCA team recently on that very topic, value-based management. Then you have complex business structures. Here you're going to be looking at joint ventures, strategic alliances, and many other types of structures. Now, in relation to the exam, what we have is we have 80 marks going for technical points, and you have 20 marks for professional skills. Now, 10 of those professional skills marks are going to be tested in Section A of your exam. Section A of the APM exam is a case study, okay? And in relation to professional skills, you're going to be tested on all 4 professional skills: communication, analysis and evaluation, skepticism, and commercial acumen. Now, after coming from SBL, you should be familiar with those professional skills, but what I might do is I might do a little recap on those 4 skills in a moment. The exam paper is broken down into 2 sections. You have Section A, the case study, 50 marks, and you have Section B, then you have 2 scenarios, okay? 25 marks each. Now, there are 5 professional marks going for each of those 2 scenario-based questions. What we do know from the APM examiner is that the case study in section A will be based on topics from section A, B, and C of the syllabus. And what you're told then is that one of the questions in section B will come from section D of the syllabus. And the other section B question can come from anywhere in the APM syllabus. So you have 80 technical marks across section A and B of your exam paper. So there'll be 40 technical marks for the case study plus 10 marks for professional skills. And in the section B questions, the scenario-based questions, you'll have 25 marks for each scenario-based question, 20 technical marks, and 5 professional marks. Let's do a little recap on the professional skills. Now, communication only comes into play in section A of your exam paper. You will not be tested on this professional skill in section B. So what do we mean by communication? Well, section A, the case study, you will be required to present a report. And it's important that that report has appropriate headings and subheadings, that your response is clear, your language is concise, and that you have answered all the questions that have been asked. So that's communication. Now, in relation to analysis and evaluation, let's have a look at evaluation. And a good example might be a company that is thinking about introducing a new budgeting system. And what you have to do is evaluate the new budgeting system. Now, evaluation is you need a balanced response. So what you need to be doing to show your evaluation skills, you need to be getting across positive points and negative points, okay? And if you have a response that has balance, okay, now I don't mind more negatives than positives or more positives than negatives, but if you're trying to get across the pros and cons, the advantages, the disadvantages, the positive and negative points, you're demonstrating that important skill of evaluation. So evaluation is being able to offer a more balanced perspective in your response to an issue. In relation to analysis, a simple example is you're given data and facts, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to take the relevant data and facts into consideration when you come to making a recommendation. Now, you know, it may be a case that you have overlooked some data, facts in your response. It may be a case that you feel that you don't have sufficient data available and that you would recommend that we source data on a particular area before making a final decision. So analysis is taken on board the data, the facts that are presented to you in the case study, the scenario. Sometimes we overlook certain pieces of data, certain facts before we make a decision. And on occasion, there may be a situation where you have to say to management, look, we need to gather more data and information before making a final decision. Skepticism, watch out for director statements in the case study or scenarios. And very often directors make assertions, they make statements. And the reason why they're put into the case study, the scenarios, they're there to be challenged. So you might be happy with a comment that's made by a particular director, and you need to get that across in your response. You need to challenge that particular director. And when you start challenging, or when you have that questioning mindset that challenges the information that's in front of you, that challenges evidence, okay, that even challenges assumptions that are made, you're picking up those professional skills marks for skepticism. Now, commercial acumen, okay, now what you do not have is marks going for particular points in your response when it comes to professional skills. Every time you go to make a point, you're getting a technical mark. But on top of that, you might also be getting professional marks. So for example, if you're looking at implementing activity-based budgeting and you're asked to evaluate this new budgeting system, and if you give me back 3 advantages, 3 disadvantages, you're picking up 6 technical marks. But because you have advantages and disadvantages, you're also picking up professional skills marks for evaluation. And there might be a comment made by a director regarding the budgeting system. And if you go to challenge the director on the budgeting system, on top of the technical marks, you're also picking up skepticism marks as well. Commercial acumen. A lot of students think that this is bringing in, real world examples. When you look at the APM exam answers, there's no real world examples being brought into play. I'm not discouraging you from bringing in real life examples. The important thing is to be able to deal with the issues that are actually in front of you. And if you feel that there's a good industry example out there that you could use to support your recommendation, bring it in. But commercial acumen is all about making decisions that is consistent with the scenario that's in front of you. Let me give you a simple example. I mean, you have a company that is very, very successful with a differentiation strategy, and they might be making themselves stand out from the crowd because of superior technology, quality, okay? Now, you're not going to be making a recommendation in an APM exam that this company should become a cost leader. We're talking about Michael Porter's strategies here, differentiation, cost leadership. So if you have a company that is very, very successful with a differentiation strategy, the last thing you're going to be doing is recommending that we should become a cost leader. I look at commercial acumen as common sense, okay? So make sure that anytime you're making suggestions, recommendations, it's very, very important that they are consistent with the content of the case study, the scenario. Now, I'm constantly saying to students as well, in relation to professional skills, that you're not going to be able to pick up those professional skills marks unless you have the technical knowledge. What will happen is you learn the technical, or you pick up the technical knowledge from the classroom. And what will happen then is you'll be able to develop your professional skills over time. Professional skills is not something that you're going to be able to pick up after 1 or 2 lectures. So use the lectures to develop your technical knowledge. And over time then, what you'll see is your professional skills emerging. Now, before I finish up, what I would like to do is I would like to show you an exam paper. And I have the updated revision kit here in front of me. And I'm gone into mock exam 1. It's a 3-hour, 15-minute exam. Section A, you have that compulsory case study. Section B, then you have those 2 scenarios, those 2 25-mark scenarios. Now, in relation to question 1, the case study, normally what happens in the case study is you're given background information, the company's products, its markets, maybe the number of employees, how long it's established. Then what you're introduced to is the company's mission. And invariably, there's a mission statement in these case studies. Now, what you might also have are objectives, strategies as well. So normally they fall into the second paragraph. Then what you have are other sections or exhibits. And these exhibits relate to the actual requirements in the case study. So basically, these exhibits are telling you how you should go about answering the requirements to the case study. What you have is you have appendices, okay, and you'll definitely see numbers. Now, it doesn't mean that you're actually going to be using your calculator. Occasionally, you might have to resort to your calculator. So, a lot of the figure work is already done for you. So what you'll be doing is you'll be adding value. Rather than getting you to process figures, those figures will already be processed for you. So your job is to come in and demonstrate how you can actually add value, or how value can actually be added to the information that has been presented. And you can see the requirements there, A to E. You're not going to understand fully what the examiner is looking at by going through the requirements here. As I said, you'll have an exhibit for each requirement, and each exhibit will explain to you what you need to do in order to answer each of the requirements. And as I said, there's always a report required for the case study in section A. When you move into section B, then you have the shorter questions. Question 2 happens to be on budgeting here. And once again, what you have are figures as well. Now, in this particular question, there is some numerical work required. What you have to do in part B is recalculate the budget for 8 marks, but most of the marks there are going for a course narrative. And you can see the professional skills coming into play there. Once again, communication skills will not be tested in section B. What will be tested in section B in relation to professional skills is analysis and evaluation, skepticism, and commercial acumen. And the second section B question here is actually an old APM question. And it has a numerical element as well, where students are required to calculate the economic value added. EVA is a new concept to anybody coming into APM. It's an important concept. You need to say to yourself, I'm going to get an EVA question or requirement in my exam. It could be a numerical requirement, or it may be a narrative requirement. And you have the notes there to facilitate your EVA analysis, and you have the requirements then. In relation to the requirements in section B, what you'll probably find in section B, that when you read the requirements, yeah, you know exactly what the examiner is looking for. But in the case study, that's not going to be possible. So in the case study, what you'll have is an exhibit for each requirement explaining to you what you need to be able to do in order to respond to requirement A, B, C, and D. Now that's the exam paper. So if you're a student that has done SPL and are quite comfortable with SPL, and you like the idea of combining SPL with performance management, this is the option paper for you. Anybody that's working in industry, I would strongly recommend that they take on APM as an option paper as well. If you haven't done performance management at applied skills level, as I said, no need to worry. I think what's important is that you have some exposure to case studies before coming into APM. And having SPL behind you is a huge advantage going into an APM classroom. And it's not because you have covered some of the topics, it's because you've already been exposed to case studies. And what you'll find is that an SPL student may only have to read an APM scenario once, whereas you take a student that hasn't done SPL, they might have to go back and read the scenario a second or a third time. So having SPL behind you makes it, will make you more efficient in digesting the data information that's shown in front of you. Remember, if you're working in industry, you like the idea of combining strategic management and management accounting, this is the right paper for you. If you're looking for a paper that is number crunching, it's not APM. As I said, the bulk of the marks, most of the marks, in fact, are going for narrative. Now, if you have any questions, regarding APM as an option paper, feel free to get in touch with me directly. You can contact me at michael.barry@accountancyschool.ie, and I would be more than delighted to answer your queries. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you in my APM classes.